We're talking late February to late March 2025. A pretty wild month for science. We've dug through all your sources, and we're going to bring you the really important stuff, the stuff that actually matters.
Think of it as like a guided tour, through the biggest breakthroughs and discoveries,
Yeah.
the coolest stuff, from space all the way down to microscopic life. We want you to stay informed without getting completely overwhelmed.
So where are we headed today? Well, first up, we're going to check out a private company that actually landed on the moon. A huge first.
That's super exciting.
Then we'll zoom way out and explore some brand new planets orbiting a nearby star. And back here on Earth, we've got some amazing progress in flexible electronics, plus some really good news in the fight against antibiotic-resistant bacteria.
Definitely some positive stuff happening.
But it's not all sunshine and roses, right? We'll also be taking a look at some pretty worrying trends, like the decline in butterfly populations and some record lows in global sea ice.
Yeah, it's a real mix of exciting progress and, well, some serious challenges.
Definitely. But that's what we're here for, right? To break it all down, make it clear and easy to understand.
Exactly. We'll cut through the technical jargon and focus on what it all really means.
All right, let's launch right into it with, an actual launch. Firefly Aerospace and their mission to the moon. We've been hearing a lot about private companies getting into the space game, but their Blue Ghost mission 1, that was the first fully successful private moon landing. Like, wow.
Yeah, a real milestone. And the timeline really shows you just how complex this whole thing was.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it. They launched way back on January 15th of this year, 2025, on a SpaceX Falcon 9. But it wasn't a straight shot. The Blue Ghost lander didn't actually touch down on the moon until March 2nd, in the Merecrisium region, near a spot called Mons-la-Trail.
So a few weeks just to get there.
Right, exactly.
And they didn't just pop in for a quick photo op. This mission actually worked on the lunar surface for over 14 Earth days. That's the longest any commercial mission has stayed on the moon so far. Pretty incredible.
Oh, yeah. And what's even cooler is what they were doing up there. The Blue Ghost was carrying 10 different scientific and technological experiments for NASA. It's all part of their CLPS program. That stands for Commercial Lunar Payload Services.
CLPS, right?
Yeah, basically NASA's teaming up with private companies to send stuff to the moon, test out new technologies. It's all part of the bigger Artemis program, the one that aims to send humans back to the moon. So these commercial missions are kind of like scouts, gathering intel, paving the way.
Laying the groundwork, right. So this successful landing isn't just about planting a flag. It's about opening up the moon for more frequent, maybe even affordable missions in the future.
Exactly. Could be a huge shift in how we explore space.
Okay, let's switch gears completely now. From the moon to, a whole different star system. We're talking about Barnard's star, the second closest star system to our own, about 6 light years away. And astronomers just confirmed something really cool.
Really cool, yeah. They found not just 1, but 4 small, rocky exoplanets around Barnard's star.
Exoplanets meaning?
Oh, sorry. Planets orbiting a star other than our sun. And they found 4 of them.
Wow.
And get this, they used some seriously high-tech instruments for this discovery. The Moronex instrument on the Gemini North Telescope and data from the Very Large Telescope. These are like the big guns of astronomy,
So are we talking Earth-sized, Earth-like planets here?
They are in terms of size. Their masses are between about 19% and 34% of Earth's mass, so it's definitely on the smaller rocky side. But, and this is big, but they're all orbiting super close to Barnard's star.
Close.
Meaning they're way too hot for liquid water.
Yeah.
So even though they might be rocky, like Earth, it's probably not a very hospitable environment, no oceans or anything like that, just scorching hot.
So maybe not the best spot for a vacation home. But still, finding 4 planets around a nearby star is pretty significant, right?
Oh, absolutely. It tells us that even quiet, unassuming stars like Barnard's star can have these complex planetary systems. And here's the kicker. Barnard's star is now the nearest single star we know of that has a multi-planet system made up entirely of planets smaller than Earth.
Wow.
It's a big deal. It shows that our planet hunting skills are getting better and better. And hints that maybe, just maybe, planetary systems are way more common than we used to think, even around stars that aren't as active as our sun.
Okay, so we've gone from the moon to distant planets. Now let's bring it back down to Earth, literally, and talk about something we might actually see in our everyday lives soon. Ultrathin films for electrical conductivity. Sounds a little complicated, but basically.
Basically, it's about making electronics super flexible.
Oh, okay.
Researchers at Osaka University have been working with this really cool material called vanadium dioxide, or VORO,
Mm.
and they figured out how to make these incredibly thin layers of it on flexible surfaces.
Flexible surfaces, like what?
Like imagine your clothes, or even your skin. And here's the key. They've managed to keep this material's unique electrical properties intact, even when it's super thin and flexible.
Unique how?
Well, vanadium dioxide is special because it can act like two different materials. Sometimes it lets electricity flow easily like a metal, and other times it blocks electricity like an insulator. And it can switch between these two states depending on the temperature.
So it's like a switch turning on and off.
Kinda, yeah. It's called a metal insulator transition. And this makes it super promising for things like flexible and wearable electronics.
Like, I'm thinking bendable screens, clothes that can charge your phone. Am I on the right track?
Exactly. That's the kind of stuff we're talking about. And the reason this is such a big deal is because up until now, it's been really hard to keep those switching properties working when you make the material super thin and flexible.
Right, so they've solved a pretty big problem then.
They have. And that opens up a whole world of possibilities for new gadgets and technologies that are not only more flexible and durable, but also smarter and more responsive to their environment.
Very cool. Okay, shifting gears again. This time to a topic that affects us all, our health. We're talking about the discovery of a brand new class of antibiotics. That's huge news in the fight against infections, especially the ones that are becoming resistant to the drugs we already have.
It is huge.
Yeah.
Researchers at McMaster University have identified this new molecule called lariocidin. And the big thing is, it's not just a new antibiotic. It's a whole new type of antibiotic. It works in a completely different way.
So a new weapon against superbugs.
Exactly. And it's been showing some real promise against bacteria that have become resistant to the drugs we're currently using. That's a growing problem, antibiotic resistance. It's making it harder and harder to treat even common infections.
Yeah, I've heard about that. Scary stuff. So how does this new antibiotic work? What's different about it?
Well, it's called a lasopeptide. Basically, it's a tiny protein that can kind of tie itself into a loop, like a lasso. And this unique shape lets it grab onto and disable essential parts of the bacteria.
Essential parts, like
their protein synthesis machinery. It's basically the bacteria's factory for making new proteins, which they need to survive. And lariocidin blocks this process, but it does it in a completely different way than other antibiotics.
So the bacteria haven't seen this trick before.
Exactly. It's attacking them from a new angle. And that's why it's so exciting. It could be a game changer in the fight against antibiotic resistance. We desperately need new tools, new approaches, and this discovery could be a major step in that direction.
That's a good news story for sure. But unfortunately, our next topic is a little less uplifting. We're talking about a pretty significant decline in butterfly populations across the U.S.
Yeah, this is a real concern. A new study published in the journal Science found that butterfly populations in the contiguous United States have declined by a whopping 22% between 2000 and 2020. That's in just 2 decades.
22%. That's a lot. Any idea which butterflies are being hit the hardest?
They looked at data from something like 76,000 butterfly surveys. That's a lot of data, covering over 550 different species. And what they found was that 107 species declined by more than 50%. And get this, 22 species declined by over 90%.
90%. Wow. That's pretty devastating.
It is. And the main culprits, habitat loss, pesticide use, and climate change. Basically, we're making it harder and harder for these beautiful creatures to survive.
I think a lot of people forget butterflies aren't just pretty to look at. They play a really important role in our ecosystems.
Oh, absolutely. They're crucial pollinators, helping plants reproduce, including a lot of the plants we eat. They're also a really good indicator of the overall health of an environment. So when their populations decline, it's a sign that something's wrong. Something's out of balance.
Like a canary in a coal mine almost.
Yeah, exactly. It's a warning sign. And it's telling us we need to do more to protect these insects and their habitats. We need to rethink how we use pesticides, how we develop land, and how we address climate change. It's all connected.
It really is. Okay, our final stop on this whirlwind tour of science news takes us to, well, the top and bottom of our planet, the Arctic and Antarctic. And the news isn't great. We're seeing some record lows in global sea ice extent.
Yeah, February 2025 was a rough month for sea ice. Both the Arctic and the Antarctic saw some significant reductions. In the Arctic, the sea ice extent was about 8% below average for February. which, might not sound like a lot, but it actually made it the lowest February extent since we started keeping records with satellites.
Wow.
And in the Antarctic, even worse, the sea ice extent was a full 26% below average, the fourth lowest on record for that month.
The pretty big drops in both regions.
Huge drops. And the main driver, climate change, unfortunately. The planet is warming, and the ice is melting faster and faster.
And I know this is bad news for the animals that live in those regions, but what about the rest of us? What are the consequences of less sea ice?
Oh, it affects everyone. It messes with global weather patterns. It changes ocean currents. It contributes to rising sea levels. And of course, it's absolutely devastating for the ecosystems in those polar regions. From the big animals like polar bears and seals, all the way down to the tiny organisms that form the base of the food chain. It's a cascade effect,
Right, it's all connected, again.
Exactly. And it just highlights how urgent it is to address climate change. We need global cooperation, strong policies, real action. Because what happens in the Arctic and Antarctic doesn't stay in the Arctic and Antarctic. It affects us all.
So we've covered a lot of ground today, from a private moon landing to the discovery of new planets, from exciting advancements in electronics to a potential breakthrough in the fight against superbugs. But we've also talked about some pretty serious challenges: declining butterfly populations, melting ice caps. It's a mixed bag for sure.
It is. But that's the reality of science, right? It's constantly pushing forward, discovering new things, solving problems. But it's also highlighting the challenges we face, the things we need to work on.
And the thing is, all of these stories, they're not just isolated events. They're all interconnected. The technology that lets us explore space can also help us create more sustainable materials here on Earth. The health of our ecosystems is directly linked to global climate change. It's all part of the same big, complex, fascinating picture.
It really is.
So as you go about your day, think about these stories. Think about the bigger picture. What does a growing private space industry mean for the future of exploration? How will these new antibiotics change how we treat diseases? And what can we do, each of us, to help protect our planet and the incredible diversity of life it supports? These are big questions, but they're questions worth asking.
They are.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We hope you learned something new and maybe even got a little inspired to learn more. Because the world of science, it's never boring.
Never boring.
And it affects us all.
That's for sure.
All right, until next time, stay curious.
Stay curious.